It's easier to see looking back. Well, they say that hindsight is 2020 vision, and so is growth. As we begin to grow, it's easier to see what we were doing, what we haven't been doing, and how we are moving forward. The verse for today is forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. The full verse is Philippians 3:13. Forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead. God, help me to recognize the growth you have already produced in my life. As we're approaching our 180 day, that is 179, and tomorrow uh, will mark our 180 day, which will be, I mean, we lives at first, and we said, this is what's important to me, and this is how I'm going to choose to grow in my life. And so when you think about, when you look back and we look back to was it easier to look back and say, this is what happened? Or was it a day by day that we talked about yesterday, where we're just sowing seeds a little bit at a time, and then we look up and go, this happened. So the truth is, growth often happens so gradually that we fail to notice it when it's occurring. Many people underestimate their progress because they measure themselves day by day instead of season by season. For example, a child grows a little each day. Parents rarely notice in the moment. They look at an old photograph and realize how much has changed. Personal growth often works the same way. There have been seasons when I felt like I was not making progress at all. I was doing the work, showing up, learning, growing, but because change was happening so slowly, it felt invisible. Now I go sit down with an individual and I make these amazing connections every day. And I go sit down and I make sure that my eyes are up and my phone's down. What a huge growth lesson that is, that we don't sit and play on our phones while we're trying to have a conversation with others. It seems so easy now, but when you were used to doing it, it seems so difficult. One of the things about getting up in the morning and you say, I'm going to commit to getting up at 6:30 every single day, or whatever the time before that, so you can be here. Or for some people, maybe in California, it's 5:30 and people later on a little bit later. But you make this commitment, and then it's hard to do in the beginning. And all of a sudden you notice that you're not even using an alarm clock anymore. You're not even having to wake yourself up. Your body knows this is the time that we start what we do. And there have been seasons when I felt like I was not making the progress. But because it's been happening so slowly, it was so invisible. Then I would look back 6 months, a year, even several years, and realize how different I had become. My thinking was different. My reactions were different. My faith was stronger. My perspective was healthier. God showed me that growth is often easier to recognize in hindsight. What feels small today may look remarkable when viewed over time. And that's why I want to encourage you today. I want you to think through the last 179 days. And if you missed a few or you missed a whole bunch, all that meant is now you're not missing as many as before. Now it means that you are dedicated and you've grown that muscle that now is in smooth mode. You think about a runner who begins running, or a walker who can only walk to the end of the driveway each day. Walk down the steps, 20 steps down to the end of the driveway, or maybe it's 100 steps there and back. And that day seems so difficult. It seems like I'll never be able to go further. Then the next day they go 102 steps, then 104 steps. And pretty soon they're walking around the block and they're walking or jogging a mile. And so those little things, and you look back and go, oh, this is easy. This was something that I've always been able to do. Yeah, right. It was hard to remind back, right? So what's happening with our mind? Because psychologists sometimes refer this as adaptation bias. I'll use that word again, adaptation bias. The brain quickly adjusts to improvement and new levels of growth, causing progress to feel normal. Because of this, people often overlook how far they've come. And this is why it's so important to journal when you can. That's why our promise book is so important, that you write every single day the promises you make to yourself. So you can look back and say, wait a minute, look at all these promises that I kept. Look at my life and what has changed. Reflection helps restore perspective by allowing the brain to compare present reality with past reality. It is so important to be able, when we talk about comparison being so bad all the time, it's important that we start thinking about comparison that's good. And if we're growing, then the comparison is amazing. That gap between where we were and where we are now is so exciting to sit back and think about. And so the heart connection is you have grown more than you realize. And it's so fun to look at our hearts and be able to see that. The invitation is, how have you changed during the last 6 months? And the practice is, write down 5 ways you've grown emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and relationally. I would love to hear what those are. I would love for you to put them in the chat. I would love for you to send me a message, because I would love to be able to track your growth. Someday you may be listening to this as a part of a recording from a book, and you've read the book and you realize, oh my gosh, I've gone through this so many times. 179 times to be exact, up to this day, in 1 year. And just see who you've become, because one of the promises that I make in the intro is you will never be the same if you do this with me for the whole year. And we're just getting started. We're as of today, we're not even halfway there. Right? So write down those 5 ways. The short prayer is, Father, thank you for growth that is happening even when I cannot always see it. Help me to appreciate the progress you are producing and the trust the progress you are leading me. And the blessing, may God help you see how far you have come and encourage you for the journey that's ahead. The reflection today is, do you think people often overestimate their growth? Of course, it is yes. How have you changed? Not how often. How have you changed in the last year? And what is for you right now, so that you will have them? And then all I really want you to do is just pay attention to those comments at some point, right? If you want to go back and look at it and see you have those in there. All right, so